she said.
With the remote.
All right. Well, welcome back to another edition of Inside BBI with John and Eric. I'm John McDevitt, and with me, as always, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. And Eric, it's been a crazy week in Giants land. First off, what you drinking and how you doing?
I'm drinking beer.
Nice.
And I have technical difficulties on my regular setup, so I'm coming to you from my hostage cave. So
nice.
Right now. Okay.
Nice. Well, as Giants fans, we've been held hostage since 2012.
BBI, inside BBI glass.
I love those glasses. I normally have mine. I didn't. I've been scrambling, but I do have Voodoo Ranger, Tropical Force. It's a tropical IPA. It's not my favorite, but I have a bunch of them, so I got to finish them off. So there we go. That being said, Eric, this is week one of the Kafka era or error, depending on however this goes. But let's kind of step back. Giants fire Brian Daboll. It's not a huge surprise. We talked about this on Monday with Cy. It's, it is what it is. The surprise is, A, they didn't get rid of Bowen at the same time. B, we also are hearing that Joe Shane may be safe. So as the week has kind of played out, just your thoughts since we've had a little more time to digest it.
Well, yeah, I feel kind of. It depends on what you think of Kafka. If you like Kafka, or you're a Kafka agnostic, or you don't like Kafka, he's kind of put at a disadvantage right now because, he's sabotaged a little bit by being stuck with Bowen. The injuries are getting ridiculous. He's got a horrible situation at inside linebacker, at wide receiver. I mean, the wide receiver situation is just a joke right now. Slayton's out again. So, of course, Malik's still out, and Wan'Dale's the only guy that can catch anything. So and now, Jackson's out. So he's got 7 games, but it feels like he's sort of, the wins are all against him. So I kind of feel bad for him, but it depends on whether you think he was part of the problem or not. So.
Yeah, it's a good question. Jeremy in chat posted, if Kafka does well as an interim, do you hire him or you let him go to another team for the 2 draft picks? First off, what is well, right? If it's wins and losses, I don't want anyone to put stock in the games after the bye, meaning anyone within the Giants organization. Don't put stock in games after the bye. If the Giants lose the next 3, so you're talking Green Bay, Detroit, New England, go into the bye, you're 2-11 at that point. I do not care what happens at the back end of the season. You know what I mean? Like I don't really care, if we are win 2, win 3, because look at the teams we're going to be playing. The Raiders, their season's over with, and they're probably going to change coaches at the end of the year. You've got Dallas, who may or may not be still. They're bad right now. Who knows where they're going? Yeah, it's actually not me with the echo. It's echoing from Eric's speakers. I can hear it back into.
Yeah, I got the crappy speaker, so that's unfortunately you guys are going to have to deal with that today.
Yeah, sorry about that. And you've got Washington, who's, out of it. They've got a bunch of injuries. They're out of it. So, and Minnesota, you don't know where they're going to be at by the time. And then it's outdoors. I don't want to put stock in those games. So these 3 are really telling for me with Kafka. But he's playing with one hand tied behind his back. You just talked about it. Look at who we're putting out at wide receiver. And then take the wide receiver out of the equation. Look who we're putting out at linebacker.
Yeah. The linebacker situation is approaching levels of what you mentioned the other day, the 2025 end-of-year Giants. 2005 Giants. Remember how bad that linebacking crew was. We didn't even know their names, and it's getting to be that point where people are going to have a hard time even naming the guys at linebacker. Okereke may play. It sounds like he's questionable, but he's really dinged up. He didn't practice yesterday. He was limited today. The guys backing them up were limited yesterday. And those are guys, the Flanagan, Foles, and that Novell. I mean, so the linebacker situation is. I don't know how you can judge Kafka in the last 7 games. So my guess is he's dead man walking too, and it's kind of not. Again, it's not fair to him, but it is what it is. I mean, he's got Bowen. And did you see Bowen? I used Bowen's quotes from yesterday today that Mike in Ohio got a good chuckle at. He said, "Well, yeah, I kind of got Daboll fired, And then later on, yeah, we're not going to change too much. so, I mean, good luck, Kafka, with that. So, I mean, what are you going to do at this point? The secondary's not living up to what we thought it was going to be. And, Green Bay's on tap, and they're going to come in, they're going to beat the Giants, and then we're going to lose to Detroit, and then we're going to go into the bye. And so I don't know how you adequately judge Kafka at this point. So
that's a good question.
Right? I mean, he could be an awesome coach, but you can't just come in and wave a magic wand and fix things.
I'm not really sure what people think they're going to see.
I mean, Jameis Winston's starting quarterback on Sunday.
And the funny thing, I can't. Well, I do know, but I'm not going to say who it is.
Wait, Paul. Wait, I can't pull up his quote.
Which part? The struggling part, or the?
Yes. Can you pull that up? I can't pull that up for some reason.
Yep.
The New York Giants are struggling, Paul. No one's struggling more than the New York Giants. Okay, we're everyone's get well team. So.
Yeah,
I hate to tell you guys this, but we're the bad team. So
there was another.
Keep bringing up Bill Belichick all you want. So
God, there was another content creator who said the Giants playbook will be wide open with Jameis Winston as the starter, and I'm like, how? The bulk of the Giants playbook is built around a mobile quarterback. So now you've got an immobile quarterback. Yes, he's going to throw the ball down the field. I agree with you. But if he gets pressure, we're screwed. He's not running away from anything. And your receivers are so bad that I don't know how, why people seem to think this is – I think it's a good choice. I think Russell Wilson is done. But Jameis Winston is going to be a sitting duck. If the Giants can't run the ball at all, the pass rush is going to come after him like there's no tomorrow.
If you're Green Bay, what do? You'd load up against the run. That's what I do. And I would probably play some sort of deep coverage, because the one thing Jameis can do is launch the ball. But I'm play the run, and I basically dare him to dink and dunk the team down the field, and he probably won't be able to do that. Look, Jameis is fun. Jameis is a breath of fresh air, but there's a reason why Jameis was unsigned by everybody except the New York Giants. He is what he is, and he can throw a beautiful deep ball. He can also throw pick sixes galore. So it was the correct move, as you said. It was the right move, but it's not a good situation. We got 7 games. The real drama begins in January. That's when the real drama begins. Now, if Kafka can do anything to pull off some upsets and keep the Giants competitive, then he's going to have his hat in the ring for this stuff. There's been some who've speculated, does he survive and remain the offensive coordinator under a new head coach, depending on who the head coach is? Because there would be probably some candidates that would probably like him. So he may not be completely out of the picture, but it depends on who we bring in here as the head coach. The bigger question is Shane, what you mentioned earlier. There have been reports out there that Shane is on the hot seat. There have been reports out there that he's not on the hot seat. We don't have any idea if he's on the hot seat or not. If I were him, I'd be sweating a little bit right now. The wide receiver situation's a mess because of him. The inside linebackers are a mess because of him. Yes, there are injuries there, but the depth is atrocious. And there are other issues. There are other places on this team that after 4 years, you would think, wow, the roster's better, but is it really that much better than when he came in here? So he should be sweating bullets a little bit. Is he? I don't know. I do not buy the narrative that was out there. I forget who. Somebody said it, that the new head coach would have say in whether Shane remains or not. I don't buy that at all. When have the Giants ever had a situation where the head coach makes a decision on whether the GM is there or not? I that doesn't sound Giant-like to me at all. I don't know if you feel differently.
Well, it's not that I feel differently. I just don't know. Where did that come from? Right? Who would even be saying that within the Giants organization? You're not going to You're not going to tell anybody that. So, are you guessing? Are you just putting in your personal feeling? Now, if they do walk the dumb line and go to Bill Belichick, I could see that. I could see them listening to him. Dear God, don't. But
I think they're consulting with him. And as a lot of people have said, he would walk over hot coals to be the Giants head coach. But as other people on the national media have laughed out loud about, including, I think it was Chris Sims. I don't remember where I saw this. They were laughing about the girlfriend being on the sideline. Can you imagine that drama and all of that? So I just
oh
don't.
my God.
I don't. But I think, obviously we know from the last few years that Bill Belichick still has influence with the Giants, and that goes with the Joe Judge pick. That goes with the Brian Dable pick. It's unfortunate that we didn't get Belichick 10 years ago or 15 years ago, but it's worked out the way it has, and now it's. He's old. He sounds old. You and I have talked about. He's kind of lost his mind. It seems like a little bit. He's certainly lost his mojo. North Carolina dumped them halfway through the season. So, and what does that tell you? So, and it's not like North Carolina's a powerhouse. That they're a team. They're a team that was looking for somebody with some stature, and they saw enough of that and said, "Whoa, we're out." So, I wouldn't think it would be him. What I find is interesting is that all the name people keep mentioning the Notre Dame head coach, who's never coached at the pro level. And when's the last time a college coach jumped to the NFL and did well? I know Jimmy Johnson did, but has there been somebody since? Probably, but I can't think of anybody off the top of my head.
You can't count Harbaugh because he had been in the league before,
right?
So he doesn't count.
Somebody in chat will probably. By the way, because I'm on this computer, I can't bring up quotes. You'll have to bring up.
Yeah, I can bring.
Yeah, it's recognizing me as a guest right now. So, so I don't know. So I to me, the most interesting thing moving forward is the coaching situation, and when and if does Dart come back? I assume he's going to come back. Do you wait until the bye?
I would.
Or I would wait until after the bye. I would play it safe. But
there's nothing to be gained by playing him right now, right? Like if he played this weekend, who's he got a wide receiver? What are you
he's not playing this weekend, right?
No,
next weekend. Well, do you play him against Detroit?
If he were, my point is, if he were, what would you be learning this weekend? Nothing. The guys at wide receiver, you have very little. You're relying on him, as you have been, to do everything with his legs, to generate both the pass and the run with his legs. He's having to move around. He's got to create spots and let guys get open because their patterns are they run probably the most basic route trees that I've ever seen. They don't do anything that seems like concept wise that's just off the charts like some other teams. They just don't. So then if it's next week, it's against Detroit. They're another team that need to keep winning. They're in a position to win their division. They're in a position to put themselves in a solid spot for the playoffs. They've got to keep winning. Then you've got New England, who right now one of the best records in the league. I don't care who they played. They're 9-2. You're going to be playing them on a Monday night. They're a physical team. I think you just wait for Dart until after the bye. Let that head clear. It's not the only time he took a shot today.
Exactly, and that's what makes me a little bit nervous. Imagine if he has a second concussion before the year ends. That's what scares me a little bit. So I would kind of wait until. And I know Dart's the only one worth watching. By the way, I'd bring it up. I don't know how I couldn't think. William Downs put this up, 1917. Coughlin. Obviously, I don't know why I didn't think of Coughlin. Obviously, Coughlin coached in the NFL as a wide receivers coach in a number of different places, but he came from Boston College and went to the Jags and then the Giants. So obviously,
I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to change the way this is since you're logged in as a guest at the moment.
I've been
demoted.
So
you'll be able to see the comments on the screen that everybody puts in. I'm not going to do it all the time going forward, but for now and maybe some other
snazzy.
Shows, yeah, it works this way, and the feed should scroll as it gets added, so you'll be able to keep.
Now
up
you
with
guys behave.
Yeah, yeah, just
Or we'll
keep
take this away.
keep it
from
clean.
you.
Keep it clean. Yeah, and Optimus posted something just a minute ago in chat that I had mentioned before. I'm big on I would love to see the Giants go get Tony Pastors to come in as president from the Rams, bring him over, make him
Right.
the president of football operations. The GM thing to me is very interesting with Joe Shane, and there's a part of me that thinks maybe there's truth that he's not locked in. You've got to look at a couple things. You might interview some guys who go, I don't want to come if he's the GM. Like
Right.
he
Correct.
he's on thin ice. If I come in, if you fired a GM now, you got to go find a new GM. That GM's got to come and want to be with me.
Then we're not on the same page again.
Yeah,
We're
or he's bringing his own guy. So then or you keep him. If you're going to 2 years, now we're on that weird 2 year, and then you get rid of both of us. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Also, I will say this. I've always said that I thought Joe Shane was better at his job than Brian Daboll. I know I'm in the minority with that belief, and that's fine. But there's something about his attitude that I don't like lately. The stuff where he's on the field the other day acting like a jackass with some of the players. Your coach that you came in with got fired. Don't buddy up to Jamie Gillian, the punter. I don't give a shit with his long hair and the other crap. And you're playing around. You're the GM of a team that you won 3 games last year. You've won 2 games this year. You won 6 games the year before that. You finished the 22 year where you made the playoffs 2-5-1. You have not been a winning organization since you guys started 7-2 in 2022. And you're out joking around after the coach you came in with got fired. I know that it might be nothing, and people might say I'm making nothing out of it. But this is a guy right now that should be fearful for his job.
right. Well, let's look at
You
the.
don't play with these guys like that.
Well, let's look at the negative side on him. Again, people are going to think I'm piling on, but again, there are significant negatives here. He picked Dable or influenced the selection of Dable, which didn't work out. He has. I don't think he was the driving force behind getting Dart, who looks like to have been the correct decision to draft him. I don't think Dart was his guy, but to his credit, after they couldn't get Cam Ward, he listened to his coach and he traded up and got him. So that's on the positive side. But again, there are parts of this roster that are still a mess. The wide receiver room is a joke. The inside linebacker room is a joke. They've struggled for a long time to replace Leonard Williams, and hopefully that's going to start to get rectified. But again, the defensive line isn't really all that good outside the edge rushers. I'm not including the edge rushers there. So, and we now, as you've pointed out repeatedly, we seem to be always against the cap, despite having a quarterback on a rookie deal now too. So, and then there was the whole Daniel Jones mess. There was the whole Saquon Barkley mess, the Xavier McKinney mess. We can go on and on and on. And then you can point to the good draft picks, but you can point to horrible draft picks and trade ups and stuff like that. So again, you can make an argument if you were trying to keep him, this list the positives and make him keep him. But you could also go the other way and say why he shouldn't be here. So like I said, he's on thin ice in my mind. Whether he is in that building, I have no idea. And I don't know I do like the fact that there are reporters out there with some gravitas who have mentioned he's not completely safe. So maybe there is some hope. And it sounds like I'm rooting against him. I'm not, but I am rooting for a situation where he doesn't feel like he's completely safe, because he shouldn't feel like he's completely safe, because this team is still a mess. And he's the architect of it. Now, does he get pressure from above? Sure. But he's still the architect of this situation. So he's modernized things. The drafts have gotten a little bit better. But it's interesting. We always feel good about the draft after it happens. And then as the next year goes along and the next year goes along, that draft doesn't look so good. So I hope that doesn't continue too. But then that may get into the coaching situation, which other people have pointed out, that our players don't seem to develop here. And when they go to other teams, they develop with the other teams. And the latest example is Daniel Jones. So, but that's a whole other story. I threw a lot of it.
Yeah, no, you're good. It's I don't know. It's the weirdness. I was hoping I corrected the problem. I've been trying to figure out ways I can get it to not, because I hear it after the fact on your end, but I can't do anything about it.
What, the echo?
Yeah. So it's weird. I can hear it.
Is it bad?
No, it's enough people are saying it. And no, they're powering through it. They understand, and I
Okay.
don't like it. Bugs me because
I can try to fix it during the broadcast, but that might be risky.
Yeah, I don't. I think we're risk averse. Like let's
Yeah.
try to we'll minimize this for this one. It's been a crazy week. Yeah, no, the other players going other places doesn't bother me so much. Shit happens. What's really bothersome? It's the other way around. It's the guys that we bring in. Glowinski played well for the Colts. We bring him in. He's crap with us. Adebo.
Zeitler.
Yeah, Zeitler's another one, and he's off doing well again after he leaves. That they come here and they don't play as well. Adebo is another one, and again he's had some injuries and stuff, but he hasn't been great. We thought he's a guy who usually gets turnovers and is big on it. We're not anywhere near that. Holland, another guy, he's been solid, no turnovers.
Xavier McKinney reached a different level after he left here.
How about
McKinney was decent here, but he wasn't like what he was in Green Bay.
Well, how about Newbin? We draft him, right? And I know he has limitations, right? His speed is a limitation. He's maybe not as athletic as you would want, but he was a ball hawking safety in college. Dude can't even sniff the ball. I mean,
he's not even getting pass breakups.
I mean, the closest that he gets to the Duke is if he watches a John Wayne movie. It is seriously, he's nowhere near. Like, what happens to these guys when they come into our group? It's like, no, they just completely become different players, and that's more on. It's more on the coaching. It's more on the setup. But I really think that the stuff. Changing subjects slightly, I want to ask you the stuff coming out by Brian Daboll. A lot of it could have been written out ahead of time that you knew. You fired a coach, word was going to leak out, because it's the way it goes. But a lot of it is exactly what I've been saying for a while. The dude is too emotional. He makes decisions emotionally during the game that don't track logic things from before. So are you surprised at the things that are coming out?
Jordan Renata wrote an article that sounded just like you. Did you see his article?
I did. I read it.
It sounded just like you. So it was basically a listing of the things that but this is the kind of stuff that comes out when people start getting fired. There's he said, she said type of thing. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's not true. Sure. I'm just saying this is the kind of thing that you're saying. I've always wondered, do coaches have non-disclosure agreements with the team? Because you don't hear a lot of bad mouthing by the coach. Of course, they want to get their next job too. So they don't want to be kiss and tell and be and get shunned and blacklisted from their next job. But, I'm sure Daboll and Judge and McAdoo and Shermer would, if you gave him a couple of drinks, come on our show.
Yeah, we're Pat Shermer. Let's go.
They would open up and say, it's a shit show at Giants Central. I'm sure they would say that too, because again, they're going to defend themselves. But, you never hear the other side of the story unless it gets leaked to the press. Like Wink did. Wink leaked stuff to the press.
Yeah.
And it was clear who he was talking to, too. So, and the people that, to the detriment, to the shame of the reporters that were reporting it, they did not take into account in the reporting that they were hearing from the one, again, the people that were, and I can't remember which reporters. I want to say it was Pat Leonard and another reporter, but the people that were spewing the Wink Martindale talking points or his lackey, I can't even remember his lackey's name. They should have.
Was that Wilkins, the linebacker?
Yeah,
Wilkins,
Drew Wilkins. They should have known. They should have prefaced, or they should have said, this is one side of the story that you're hearing, but they didn't. They came out and was like, this is the story, and they should have been better professionals like that. Just like the Paul Schwartzes of the world should be better pros when not just being the mouthpiece of the Giants organization and just put out their propaganda too. So we've gone through this enough times that we've become experienced hands at reading the signs and knowing sometimes you have to read the tea leaves and take things for granted. What I don't know, and again, I'm repeating myself, is the Shane thing. The Shane thing's fascinating to me. When does Dart come back? That's fascinating to me. But, there's just so many things right now that are dragging on this team. If we had a legitimate defensive coordinator, I'd be really more interested in seeing how the last 7 games go. But you don't expect any big changes on defense, right? especially given the injuries too.
I'm like, well, what would you change?
No, I mean from Bowen too.
No, but that's what I mean. Is like, what
Yeah.
would you other than maybe? I suspect, and I don't think it's just Kafka. By the way, I thought I'll get back to that about Kafka and the defense, but I suspect some of the conversation has been, listen, we can't just go out and do the same thing we've been doing, or what, it's going to look bad. You fired Brian, and then we all come out and just do the same thing. I suspect you're going to see some more blitzing. You will see some more attacking, and they'll live. They're going to live and die by the sword versus live and die by the 1,000 paper cuts that they've been doing.
Yeah.
I think you'll see that, but injuries are going to dictate though. It's a bad combination of you need to look better and you're missing a good portion of your defense. The linebacking core is going to be almost unrecognizable.
It is unrecognizable. Yeah.
And then with Thibodeau out, Abdul Carter's got to play. And you know what?
He might do well.
He might, but there's also some things right now that say, hey, Abdul, you got to kind of live up to it too. Pressures to me don't mean shit. I know a lot of people want to live on that, but you got to close. If we counted pressure for Lawrence Taylor, then he would have like 5,000 sacks. But you still have to change the game. And Abdul has missed a lot. Some of the things that I don't like seeing though is I've seen him go down and he doesn't get back up and chase the play sometimes. And the other thing that's really distressing isn't just about Abdul Carter. It's about the Giants defense in general. Late in the game against Chicago, Giants came out in a time when you're trying to hold Chicago down, right? Because Chicago's still playing catch-up. Dexter Lawrence was on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Why am I paying you so much money if you're not on the field? And then you're switching Burns out from time to time and Thibodeau out. These guys can't play like 7, 8, 9 plays in a row. I mean, holy shit, the guys from the 80s played the entire game unless something bad happened and they would move one or two of them out. But Taylor, Banks, Reasons, Carson, those guys did not leave the field unless absolutely necessary. And these guys, they're changing them out every couple of plays. I'm like, I want my best players on the field at the key moments in time. And you're just not seeing that. So your question was, what can they do differently? Listen, don't give me that bullshit, Cement, about load management. That's unless you're being facetious, that's crap. This isn't load management. These guys aren't playing 78 snaps instead of 80. I mean, these guys are playing like 50 snaps or 6. Listen, you need when it's fourth quarter and you're up by 7 or you're up by 4. What the hell, man? You better be rushing the goddamn passer. I don't care if you're dragging a leg, dude. Get out there. You're the star. You get paid to be the star. And these guys, they use them like everybody's an interchangeable part. I'm sorry, Samantha. I got a little riled up on that.
Well, I had turned on mute and I was covering my mouth and I was yelling for my wife to bring the mic up. So I hope I was muted, that you guys weren't hearing me.
I didn't hear that.
Anyways, well, I'm gonna try to get a better mic situation while I'm talking here. So yeah, John, I know people are kind of getting miffed and they're like, why are we not talking more about Green Bay? Why are we not talking more about the Giants can win this game? And it just feels like we're at the countdown mode to get the season over still. I would love for them to upset the Packers, upset Detroit, but I just don't see it. And they're so beat up right now on top of everything. I just hope Kafka doesn't get embarrassed, but there's a chance. Remember there was a game back in the oh Christ, when was it? It was during the Jim Fossil years where Green Bay came into the Meadowlands and just whipped the crap out of the Giants. It was bad. It was like 45 to something. And it was the beginning of the end, I think, of the Fossil era, if I recall correctly. I may have that wrong, but I remember going to a bar in Northern Virginia with a bunch of Giants fans, and we just got beat down. But Green Bay came into the Meadowlands, and they just pummeled the Giants, and it was so bad. We were all like shell-shocked and just looking at each other like, this can't continue. I just hope it's not that kind of game. And Green Bay, like as people have posted, Green Bay aren't world beaters right now. They're not living up to what they were hoping to be. But they're still 5-3-1. They're still winning. In the playoff hunt. We'd killed to be 5-3-1 at this point.
What's interesting is, again, they could have 3 more wins. Again, woulda, coulda, shoulda. That being said, if they were, though, right? If they were a 5-win team right now, coming in all beaten up, Dable probably still has a job. So a loss or 2 wouldn't really be looked at as badly as it has been to this point, because you are so beat up. You won some games, but now you're beat up. Dart's got a concussion. But yet, overall, though, I just, it doesn't matter. There's just something that has been missing with this team, regardless. I don't know. I'm looking at this game going, the question that keeps popping in my head: what if they beat them? What if they beat Green Bay? And let's say they beat
with Jameis Winston.
I know. Again play.
Is this better? By the way, is the echo gone?
The only echoes there when I talk, it echoes on. I can hear it on your end. I say it and then I hear it again.
Oh,
but I can't do it. I've tried to play with it, but actually.
All right. Anyway, I changed mics.
It is what it is.
So I'm hoping it's better.
Anyway, the point is, if they were to win this game and then they won another one, now all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, are they going to put too much emphasis on these random lucky wins, maybe without the guy because it's without Dart. So if you win this game, it's without Dart. If you put a lot of emphasis on that, then I truly believe that everything that you said before about the ownership, the stuff that I've kind of fought against a little bit, that I'll be fully in that camp.
Yeah, but if Kafka,
they just can't.
But if Kafka does, I don't think it's going to happen. But if Kafka does beat Green Bay and Detroit, he should get. I'm not saying he should get the job, but that's a major deal. I mean, if they go into those games and we're like, holy crap, we outcoached the other teams, that's a feather in his cap. I mean, I'm not saying
true.
So. I don't expect that, and that's why I kind of feel bad for him, because again, Dart's out, Jameis is here. I don't care who's at quarterback right now. I don't care if it's Patrick Mahomes. We've seen Patrick Mahomes when he's had bad wide receivers, and he's not the same Patrick Mahomes. These receivers are way worse than he ever had, and I mean, they're terrible.
Dalen Combre is going to be playing.
I mean, that's how bad our wide receivers are. We're signing people off practice squads now. It's bad. I mean, it's really, really bad. So how? I don't care I don't care if you're Vince Lombardi. I mean, that at some point, talent matters. Right. So to Kafka and Dable's credit, for a little while, they were using the tight ends to the point where we were keeping in games against teams way better than us, and we were scoring decent points. Remember, I was like, when we were doing shows, I was telling you, I don't see how we score 24 points, 20 points with these wide receivers, but they were, because they were kind of using the tight ends in interesting ways. So, but that sort of sputtered. Dart got hurt, and now we're here. And the receivers seem to be getting even worse as we're going along. So you would have hoped like a Bo Collins or Jalen Hyatt or somebody would make some. I mean, Christ, talk about a blown opportunity for Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt, this should be the last month should have been Jalen Hyatt's coming out party. Nothing. And then we got Evan Neal, who hasn't played, and yet he's out with a hamstring injury. How did that happen? How does an offensive lineman pull his hamstring in practice so bad that he can't play?
Well,
or did he do that in the shower?
Well, I mean, see, here's the funny thing. Didn't they come off their day off and he all of a sudden had a hamstring?
I mean, how does that happen? I mean, can you ever recall an offensive lineman how many offensive linemen do you see with hamstring injuries? Number one on the injury
Andrew
report.
Thomas, but he was trying to chase down a blocked field.
Well, that was when him running down the field, but you normally don't see that, number one, because they don't run that far. And I mean, Andrew Thomas got it because he was running 80 yards down the field trying to catch the guy. But you normally don't see, offensive lineman hamstring injury. And plus, how did he do it in practice? They don't even really practice that hard.
Eric, he's carrying that big contract around that he's got for being a first-round draft pick. It's got to be kind of heavy towards the end of his career here. Yeah, I don't.
Or is this a made-up injury? So I kind of feel like
they're just. I think they're going to put him on. Again, the question becomes: Daboll's problem was the way he behaves, right? I'm going to get back to the point I was about to make. But Daboll's problem was the way he behaves. I think the writing was on the wall that Daboll was fired this year the second he went into that blue tent like a jackass. Even though they won that game, the Giants got fined. It's a really bad look. You go and then lose the next week where you give up stuff and it's really bad. You then have another game where you clearly are not doing the best that you probably could be doing. You're making decisions that are weird. You double down on the whole challenge thing after you were literally told you can't, and we told the whole stadium that we explained that you can't, and then you threw it down again anyway like a child. So I think the second he showed that, he was out. Here's the part that I think Joe Shane has got a real problem with. He does not admit mistakes, period. Banks is a mistake. Hyatt's a mistake. Evan Neal's a huge mistake. And I think you're what you're saying, I think, is probably more true than a lot of people probably want to admit to. I think he's being stashed. He'll go on IR with a fake injury because they don't want to just cut him right after they fired Brian Daboll, because you've got to now admit you made a shitty pick and this guy, and you didn't trade him supposedly when people were interested. You've carried him on a roster for no apparent reason. And now you're going to stash him on
IR. My prediction is he goes on IR tomorrow. That's my prediction. And the question is, does Josh Ezeudu finally come off of it? And people are going to say, play Josh Ezeudu now. But Josh Ezeudu, remember, he hasn't been practicing.
Well, that's what I said. Did they even open his window to come back?
Oh, you're right. They didn't open the window. So he can't come back. Yeah, but I still think Neal goes on IR tomorrow.
I agree. I 100% agree.
So they'll bring somebody up from the practice squad, and so I should bring up the practice squad.
I would think maybe Kubis probably would come up.
Let me see who's even on. Well, they don't really need an offensive lineman. That's the thing right now.
That's true. Well, I mean,
at some point, does Dante Miller come? Do they promote Dante Miller at some point? Oh, they said Ombre may be up, but they could just make him a standard elevation.
But if they IR Neal, then you can bring somebody onto the roster because they take a roster spot, an actual roster spot. And that's the part that I think this is what bugs me about the little Jordan Humphrey thing. You can say what you want about Humphrey. Somebody made a comment in BBI, BigBlueInteractive.com, when I said I don't understand why they didn't do this with Humphrey. They're like, oh yeah, because he, all he did against the Eagles, and then next two games he had no catches. That's not his fault. They don't even call him the ball. But he's a guy who was in training camp all summer long. He's been on the team.
Who is this?
Little Jordan Humphrey. He was on the team all fall. And then you brought him up. But he's also a guy that's different than all your other guys. He's 6'4". He gives you size. He gives you some ability to do those. When you want to do a screen, put an actual blocker out there. I'll get to that, another piece on that as well. But instead, the Giants used their 3 elevations on him and then said, you know what? We don't want to do that. So we'll bring another guy that we signed to the practice squad, which is cheap money. And then we elevate him, Ray McLeod. And they've done it a couple of times.
And Ray could be the guy that comes up. They signed to the 53. He could be him too.
But my point is, bad word on a Friday. You fucking did that on purpose. You just didn't want to pay little Jordan Humphrey a full contract,
which is nothing. You're
just like, we'll just play.
And yet Neal's been on the roster this whole.
So people are talking about Isaiah Hodgins. Oh well, yeah, but they went and got Isaiah Hodgins. Here's how bad Isaiah Hodgins must be for all of you that keep clamoring for him. The Giants waited until they had absolutely nothing at wide receiver. Humphrey signed somewhere else. They've got Ray McLeod on the practice squad. They're thinking about bringing up Dalen Combrey, and Darius Slayton's hurt. And they go, well, I guess we could bring Isaiah Hodgins back.
Yeah, and I got to
They could have
remind
brought him
people,
back weeks ago, and they didn't.
and I got to remind people about Isaiah Hodgins. So he played really well for the Giants in 2022 when they got him, and we were like, yay, we got this cool new toy. Going into 2023, there were really high expectations that he would be a decent player for us.
Right.
He played 17 games with 9 starts and only had like 20-something catches with like 300 yards. The following year, he spends the whole year on the practice squad. They elevated him a couple of times, but he spent the whole year on the practice squad, and then he goes and signs with another team, and he hasn't done anything since he left the Giants. So he's been nothing since since 2022, really. Even though he was given 17 full games and 9 starts in 2023, he just didn't do anything. So he's just the guy. What's really stupid is what you just said. Look, I know little Jordan Humphrey isn't like this world beater.
Yeah, exactly.
But he brings more to the table than Evan Neal did, and Evan Neal they didn't need because they have backup guards now.
But
So,
see, it's not even that. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. It's not even that. I want to make sure I explain myself to everybody here what I'm arguing about. Think about what I'm saying. The Giants are so busy juggling guys in and out on the practice squad to get a wide receiver to bring up, just so you don't get the guy who's been with you all off season, who's developed a relationship with the quarterback, so at least knows everything that you're doing right now, just so they don't put him on the roster full time.
Right.
But ultimately, they were in such a position. Now, keep in mind, right? Isaiah Hodgins, the only way the Giants can get him is they actually have to sign him to the roster. You can't sign him onto the practice squad. He's on somebody else's practice squad. So the only way you can do that is you sign him to the roster, and that's what the Giants finally did. So somebody just posted a minute ago, well, that's because Kafka, I think it was William said it, Kafka wanted Isaiah Hodgins. Maybe. You don't know that to be true, though. What I do know is the fact that the Giants are pretty screwed at wide receiver because Slayton's hurt again.
Yeah, and he said earlier in the week he's fine too. So, and then there's the messed up kicker. Gano's back on IR. Again, I had to go look at back. This is like the 4th time he's been on injured reserve in the last 3 years. So. Why do I have a feeling again the kicking situation is going to come up on Sunday?
It would be pretty funny if it did, but at the same time, I don't want bad things to happen I really want Kafka to have a legitimate, because this is Kafka's career, not just for the Giants, by the way. This is Kafka's career.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I kind of feel bad for him because again, he was sort of well regarded around the league, and I wouldn't want to be in this situation. But I want to close the loop on something that you just were talking about, though, too. Don't you get the feeling that Shane sometimes gets too cute with the nickel and diming of the roster with this stuff, but he's not with the big picture things that got them in the salary cap position in the first place? So they're like the person that spends big ticket items but then tries to nickel and dime the little stuff. So they'll go to Dollar General for the Christmas gifts because they went out and bought a yacht or something for themselves.
I thought about what you're saying too, and I think it's part of the reason why we're so bad with the salary cap. And I wonder if it's because the Giants are actually unbelievably cheap. The reason I say that is a lot of the contracts with the way they get structured, right? They do big bonuses and some other stuff, which means I give you a bunch of money right now.
Right.
But I spread out the cost. I'm basically doing, if for those of you who remember, I'm doing Enron and MCI WorldCom. I'm spreading out costs way the hell down the road, but I'm going to give you the cash right now. I think the Giants are very kind of stingy. They'll give some of these bonuses, but they're not ginormous bonuses. And to some of these other guys, they don't want to pay them. They're strict and stringy with their cash. And I think that's what screws us up on the cap, though. They don't really stretch things out the way like the Eagles are masterful with how they do this. You look at a couple of the other teams. Look how the Patriots ended up when they got rid of a bunch of guys, though. They ended up having plus $100 million on the cap last year. Washington had plus 100 mil on the cap, and they signed a bunch of guys. The Giants,
We're never in that situation. We're
No.
never in that situation.
Even in our best situation, which is right now going forward,
Rookie deal.
We're like 19. We're like 19th next year in cap space, and I'm like, that's not great overall. We don't have that many star players, but part of it becomes when you have to pay a lot of guys to just be regular role players. So when you go get an Illuminor and you got to pay him good money to come in and just be a role player. Van Roten is a higher paid guy to being what he gives you back on the field. And his contract is short term. So it's not like you can spread the cost out over 4 or 5 years. It's a 2-year contract. You're lucky if you can spread it out over 3. So the Giants don't know how to manage the cap at all. And some of that is Shane. It's also the players you go get. This jockeying with the receivers is a fucking joke. It is an absolute joke of what you're doing. Now, the reason I brought up little Jordan Humphrey again, go back and look. And the reason why I don't understand why you wouldn't have him on the roster, do you know that there were 3 different times over the last 2 games where the Giants called a borderline power sweep with Jaxson Dart?
Right.
Do you know who one of the lead blockers was?
You're going to say Wan'Dale.
Wan'Dale Robinson on all 3 plays. Yeah. Why the fuck would you? Why are you putting a 5'8" guy?
Surprise! They're going to surprise the opponent.
They toss him like a rag doll, and it's like, and on that play, it was his guy that threw him off, and it was the one who knocked the ball loose on Dart before he got creamed into the ground. So it's just stuff like that I think where Shane, you mentioned it. Shane is he thinks he's unbelievably smart, but you're being way too cute with stuff that should not matter, and you're spending too much mental time on it week to week.
Well, there's no reason Evan Neal should be on the roster other than pride.
Right, because he's been active one game.
Even if someone had gotten hurt, he wasn't going to be the guy that came in and replaced the person. He's not the second. He's not the backup guard. He's not even. I'm not even sure he's the 3rd team guard. So, I mean, I think they would have moved guys around at that before they put Evan Neal in there. So, I mean, why is Evan Neal? Why is Jalen Hyatt on the roster? Now we'll see with Kafka. That's what the most interesting thing with Kafka to me moving forward is: do players that we have written off, like a Jalen Hyatt, get a reprieve? I don't count on it, but does he all of a sudden because I think Jordan Renan put that in his article. I think he said Hyatt was buried by Dable and suggesting that maybe he'll get a new life with the new coach. I think we know Jalen Hyatt's limitations. We'll see, but boy, that would be damning though if Jalen Hyatt started.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll say to that about Hyatt though, this is it. If he was ever going to do anything,
he should have done it last month.
Well, this is the perfect storm, though.
Right.
Jameis Winston's the kind of guy who will chuck it down the field. He's gonna throw it deep. I think if Dart is still playing, even if Hyatt's out there, he might get a few throws. But again, we did not see that sort of connection. They kind of missed one. Dart was a little late on that one. I think it was in New Orleans. He had a couple against the Eagles, but he was
better with Gunner. Dart was better with Gunner.
Exactly. But when Hyatt dropped, what was it, 2 or 3 against New England in the preseason game against the Patriots, Dart gets hurt. Kind of similar, running down the field, bangs his head on the ground. Dart gets hurt. Jameis Winston comes in. Who does he throw it to in the end zone, and he gets his catch and a touchdown?
Yeah,
Jalen Hyatt.
You're right. I forgot about that.
So this might be, if Hyatt was going to do anything, 2 things I think are going to be at play. One, if Shane has always felt that Hyatt was one of those guys that was not being developed by the coaching staff, they're going to make a point of emphasis to throw him the ball. And 2, Jameis Winston's the kind of guy who's going to want to throw it down the field. He's going to chuck it. He's going to want to – that's just the way that dude lives. You're going to see passes down the field. The guy I think is going to be very – even though he's an important member of the Giants offense, but I think he's going to be minuscule in this game. I think it's going to be Wandell. I don't think Jameis is going to be that kind of connection with a little tiny receiver like that. That's not what he's going to look for. He's going to look for Theo Johnson. He's going to look for Jalen Hyatt. He might, if Hodgins plays, and some people say he's going to be out there playing in 11 personnel, he's going to look to Hodgins. He's going to look up top for those guys.
Is Jameis the most interesting reason to watch this game on Sunday?
You know what's really funny is we talked in the spring, and I was like, why the hell did the Giants sign Jameis Winston? I just don't get it. He might be the one guy that's actually kept this team from just falling apart. He's rallied the player. You know, he is a much different personality than I was expecting.
Oh, yeah. So, man, did you see his press conference this week?
It's crazy the way you're just
in a good
like,
way. He's crazy.
But he's kept them together. I think he's part of the reason why Russell Wilson hasn't been the Russell Wilson of old with like the way he was with the Broncos. There was that where he was kind of like off to himself. Jameis Winston, he brings those quarterbacks together. He was praying with Wilson on the field. I mean, there's something about Jameis Winston that you got to kind of like that guy. You know, he's just, you hate him when he plays for a different team, but now that he's on your team, you're kind of like, I get it. I get why the other players like him.
Do you think Russell Wilson, now it's late in the game here, but do you think Russell Wilson would like the Giants to cut him right now?
It really comes down to, and you answer the same question then. To me, it comes down to, what does Russell Wilson actually think of himself anymore?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think he likes the New York part of it.
I do too. He's been, I mean, there've been things on social media here and there of him out.
Yeah.
You know, partying. I mean, not like.
And he's at hospitals. He's doing a lot of stuff. Doing a lot of stuff.
And when I say partying, I don't want people to think like the boat during the playoff thing. It's not that kind of thing. But, you know, I think he enjoys the New York vibe, the New York scene.
I agree. I don't think he's asking to get cut because, quite frankly, who's going to pick him up?
Yeah, that's what I wonder too. If he wasn't as bad as he's been this year, I think somebody would be interested, but he's been so bad. It's what you said. I wonder if he knows it's over. I wonder if it.
I think William makes a good point. I think you're right too. I think Wilson's looking down the road.
It might be right. Yeah.
Media and other stuff. And yeah, because the writing was on the wall.
And his optimist says his wife wanted to come here.
Now there's a reason why that he doesn't need to go out partying. Have you seen his wife? Anyway, do you think that Kafka would have preferred Winston to be the backup all along?
Kafka?
Yeah, Kafka.
I know nothing about Mike Kafka because Mike Kafka's interviews since he's been here have been like watching paint dry. So it was a little more forthcoming this week when he's a head coach. But to be honest with you, he probably, of all the people that have been offensive or defensive coordinators for the Giants as long as I've been following them, I have the least feel for who and what Mike Kafka is than anybody who's ever, since going back to the 80s. I don't know what he's about. He's an enigma to me because he never says anything. So he's really well respected around the league, but I've never understood why. And I guess we're about to find out. So John, answer your question. I don't know what the man believes about anything. Do you? Yeah. I mean, do you? I
was just curious because again, part of the thing that bugs me about when people make all these bold statements about, well, they're going to do this and they're going to do that. I'm like, how do you know? The Giants offense was completely designed around Brian Daboll's concept of what it is, which what I think we've determined is, get me a quarterback that can make shit happen because that's the best I got.
But he's a genius.
Yeah, but which I don't buy it. You're living off these guys making shit up as they go along. Jameis Winston he's the antithesis of the other two guys. Russell still had mobility, even though on the field he looks a shell of himself. He's still a guy who could run around. He just chooses not to even look down the field when he does. Winston's not that guy. He's not running. You're not going to call where he's going to take the fake handoff and run around end. He's not doing that.
Right.
He might quarterback sneak maybe, but he's never been that guy. So it changes your offense completely from when Dart's not playing to now your backup is a guy who doesn't move at all. I'm just curious on what they do with that. And No, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, well, that's where we're gonna find out about Mike Kafka. Is Mike Kafka adjust? You know, is he able? So one thing I want everyone. So the the thing is there's only so much a new coach, and he's not new, but he's a new job. There's only so much you can do when you're 10 games into the season and have 7 left. It's not like he can go back to the drawing board and redo the offense completely. He can't do that. They had 3 practices this week. 2 of them were basically walkthroughs, and one was a real practice. You can't adjust anything. He can do things differently a little bit within the framework of what they've already set up, and that may be enough. But it's not like he was able to design a new playbook and do all these things. But can he do enough to make Jameis succeed? The good thing Jameis has, knock on wood here, is the offensive line has actually been pass protecting pretty well this year.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I saw a stat this week that they're like 8th in the league in pass protection in terms of all 32 teams. So he's not dealing with the offensive lines the Giants have had put out the last decade. So he should be a little bit better. The problem is what you've said. He may have to hold on to the ball because nobody's getting open. Who's
Right,
getting
right.
open for him down the field, and does he have to force some throws into tight coverage because the guys can't get open, or they're running the wrong routes? I mean, we saw that earlier with Bo Collins, with one of Dart's interceptions. He squid on the route and he got intercepted, and that's
Hmm.
Dart's interception, but that Bo Collins is the one who caused that. That happens all the time in the NFL. And does that happen to Jameis too? Because the wide receivers he has aren't very good and do dumb things and aren't on the same page as the quarterback. So that's the limitation. I'd feel better about this if we had legitimate wide receivers. We don't have legitimate wide receivers. So I think what's going to be interesting is going to be the Micah Parsons matchup with Andrew Thomas, when and if they face off, because they're I don't know if you recall, but they don't like each other. So, and Mike has played against Andrew Thomas a few times when Andrew Thomas has been hurt, and after the game Micah has been very vocal and with trash talk about how he got Andrew Thomas. I've always found that matchup interesting. So it's too bad this game doesn't mean more in the win-loss column, because there are some interesting things in it, but it's just, again, the injuries combined with the coaching change, combined with the defensive coordinator being a tool. I just don't know. I don't know. I just hope it's close. I don't want to get in a situation you and I are coming on and it's 45-10 at the end of the game, and we have to talk about the game that week. Because you and I aren't going to want to do that. We're going to be like,
I mean, at this point, so let's just kind of focus real quick. We'll keep it fairly tight. Let's focus
yeah,
on
let's, yeah.
game this weekend. What are we expecting to see from a Mike Kafka led Giants team? I think the first
I
thing
don't
is,
know.
the first part is pretty interesting. Dexter Lawrence's comments I found very interesting. Where first off, he said Dayball's my guy. And I kind of get that. And that's partly why maybe I'm not so happy with Dexter Lawrence. You haven't been playing very well, but you kind of sure acted like you have. So he said, Dable's my guy. And he said, I haven't really had any interaction with the offensive coordinator, so I don't really even know what he's like. I asked some of the other coaches. And I'm like, I know they separate and they have their own things, but Kafka's been there 4 years. You haven't had any interaction with this dude in
But
4
that's what I
years?
just said though too. He's been here 4 years. I have no idea who the man
But
is.
I'm like, you're
I
inside the
know
room.
he's on the
Like,
team.
you
He's on
guys
the team.
fly on planes together. You go
Yes.
to dinners. You go to
Right.
functions. You haven't had the opportunity to go, yeah, he's kind of funny. I've heard him tell a few jokes. You're like, I don't even know what kind of personality he has. And I'm like,
Yeah.
damn. But,
Well,
that could be.
and if Lawrence was Dable's guy, he didn't do a very good job of making sure Dable stayed employed.
Well, see, that's the thing, right? There is a part about not to shit, but not to change subjects. We're done about the Packer game. Not to shit on Dable any more than we already have. But there has been sort of this, I don't want to say country club, but it's more like this little fraternity
Yes,
thing that
buddy
Dayball,
system.
yes, that he's kind of had with his guys. And I don't think that that's really bode well beyond the 22 season. Once there was the arrogance in 23, and then it was on display in Hard Knocks going into 24. Cy brings it up all the time with the feet up on the desk and other stuff. The dropping the F-bombs with John Maris sitting right there. You got to know your audience when you do that, by the
Yeah.
way. And it was
By the
just
way, I brought up the feet thing immediately, and I got shit on
no,
for
you
that.
did. You
That bothered me from the start because
yes.
that's not the way I'm raised. You don't go to some. You don't put your feet up like that when you're when you're interviewing someone or being interviewed. That's ridiculous. You don't do that at somebody's house. That's ridiculous.
So there is a question I've been wanting to ask, and might as well do it now. Since we're talking about him. We know that leading up to the draft, so leading into the 30 visits, right? That the Giants were showing a lot of, whether true or not true, interest in Shedeur Sanders. They had gone out to Colorado multiple times.
I believe it. I believe it.
Okay. But then after the fact, there started to become rumors leading up to the draft that something did not go well in the Giants' visit with Shedeur.
He was and Shedeur, and it was reported by multiple people, and it wasn't just the Giants that Shedeur did not take those visits seriously, and I think he turned off a lot of people, and I think that those visits probably gave Dable the ammo he needed to pivot to Dart. That's my guess.
I agree. I think you're probably right. Although I don't think Shane was 100% on board with Shedeur. I think Brown was big on wanting Shedeur. But what I'm saying is, though, when you see Dayball when he did the stuff with Dart, right? The questions at the board and the way he gets you could almost tell he was setting Dart up to do well. Like he wanted him to do well. There was a buddy system, and he's throwing things like, if you had gotten that wrong, I would have been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was already set up. If you knew you were already leaning a certain way, wouldn't you go out of your way, if you're that kind of a guy that I think Dayball is, to antagonize and or piss off Shedeur, and probably made sure to make it go very badly? I can picture that scene, because what bugs me about Dayball is I feel like he makes his mind up and that's it.
Right.
And everything is geared. Now, he's been right. Don't get me wrong. He's been right about Dart. But let's not pretend like he's the only person in the Giants system that ultimately agreed with Dart. If Shane didn't agree, he's not trading assets to move up to get him.
Correct. But I still just have a feeling that he was the guy pounding the table for him, and Shedeur reportedly did not do well with other teams too.
Sure.
So
I'm against Shedeur, so I'm not for him.
I think I supported the Dable firing for all the reasons I've listed, and I wish the man well. But as I've said all along, I think in hindsight we're going to look back, and the one thing we're going to thank him for is Dart being here. So look, you don't have to be the bad guy on everything. So Dable might be the bad guy on all these other things, but he might be the guy that actually, we don't know what kind of Dart could get a series of concussions and his career might be over. We have no idea. His career might go south, but I have a good feeling about him. I think he's not only the best quarterback, and I said this a long time ago, early on when he started, I think he's the best quarterback in last year's draft. But now looking at the draft that's coming up, he looks like the best quarterback right now, even the guys coming out of this draft. And so you and I were debating, and I was wrong about waiting till this next year. Thank God we didn't wait till this upcoming year. So in hindsight, if you want to give Dable credit for anything, give him credit for getting Dart in here. That's my opinion. I just feel that he's the one who's pounding the table.
I just feel
I do agree with you that Shane did have to not be completely against it because he orchestrated the trade. If Shane didn't want him, Shane didn't have to.
Oh yeah,
he could have sabotaged the trade. He could have been like, we couldn't do it. And
he was sweating bullets to get it done.
Yeah,
he kept going, and that's the part I want to give him credit for. I think he handles the actual process of the draft, not necessarily the way the players panned out. But again, you can't shit on him about Evan Neal. The reason I say that is because every other team in the league thought Evan Neal was one of the top ranked tackles too. Dallas had him as the top highest rated tackle on the draft board. Evan Neal has just completely failed. Like, it has gone south so bad that you couldn't have predicted that. But that happens. The draft's a crapshoot. But he handles the night of the draft pretty well. I like the way he maneuvers around. Now, again, you could question some of the choices, but at the time, people were pretty thrilled with Jalen Hyatt. They were like, damn, we got Hyatt in the third round. The one that a lot of people weren't so great about was Wandell, little guy. And the thing about Wandell that I keep thinking that I wonder how much. And again, I'm not trying to bring somebody in that we can't even attached to anymore. But I wonder how much Dayball was looking for his Cole Beasley. He was looking for that guy who could be the third down little guy who gets open, catches those passes. Sometimes you try to recreate the thing that you left from versus creating this new, what I mean? It's like being in one relationship and you go to a different one and you try to recreate the same relationship. Well, so why the fuck did you leave?
By the way, and Deontay Banks is here probably because of Wink Martindale. So Wink was pounding the table for Deontay Banks. So
and that's Shane's fault.
So a lot of people who were like, we got to bring back Wink Martindale, Deontay's here because of him. I'm not saying but there's other reasons not to bring back Wink, but that's one of the big, that's one of the big ones. So,
and that's partly Shane's fault too. I feel like we've tried too hard to get guys that people want, but what's your overall system? If you look at the Rams? The Rams right now are an absolute ideal franchise in how they deal with free agency, how they deal with trades, how they deal with the draft.
Yeah. That's why you want their guy.
Absolutely. By the way, they went a number of years without first-round draft picks.
Right.
They went a number of years without it. And look who they get. You get a Puka Nacua, a guy that's off a lot of other people's radar. They don't have to be names that everybody recognizes. They just have to be, there's traits about them that you saw that fit your system. The problem is the Giants don't have a system. We have a bunch of guys, but I don't feel like we have this cohesive system on either side of the ball. We've lived off Jaxson Dart when he came into the game. He's done stuff. But do you feel confident that if Dart got injured, you bring in another quarterback, the system's going to be okay?
And you've talked about that. But some of this is because of the chaos since they've been here. So
true.
I don't know if people remember, but we've gone through coordinators and a ton of position coaches since Daboll's been here and Shane have been here.
Yes.
So they've gone through offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, special teams coaches. Wait, did we switch offensive coordinators?
No, coordinators, offensive line coach,
and a bunch of position coaches
and linebackers and defensive backs.
So Wink Martindale comes in and they get him his groceries. They get him the Okerekes and the Deontay Bankses of the world, and then they get rid of him. And they change up completely. So like you said, it's hard to have a system in place when your style changes. So they didn't go out and get the same kind of coach, and all of a sudden the players that they had don't fit the new system, and it gets all screwed up. So some of it's that, and some of it's, again, there's been a lot of chaos. I mean, there've been a lot of coaching changes in the last 4 years on this staff. If you go back and year by year, and the only reason I know this is every year I've got it in January and February, I've got to update the coaching staff section. And there's a little bio on each coach. It's a pain in the ass for me to write. And that's the only reason I'm like more aware of this than other people, because there's a lot of work that is involved in updating that page. And it's like, oh Christ, they're changing coaches again. Right. And so it's really odd for a team. I know there's always tweaking of coaching staffs here and there, and sometimes it gets completely blown up, like when the Eagles lost both their coordinators. But usually when you have a program in place, most of the coaches stay on the staff, unless, again, there's some hot shot guy that gets hired by a new team. But with the Giants, they've been getting rid of people constantly under Daboll because of one problem or another. And that's gets back to what you said. The system isn't been there because there is no system, because everyone keeps changing. There's no stability, I guess is what I'm saying. The Giants, for as stable as Daboll has been the 4 years, the branches underneath him have changed a ton.
And the Rams have gone through that, but it's because guys have matriculated onto other positions. They've moved on as head coaches elsewhere, and they just replace guys. But it's the reason that their system is so solid that new guys can come in. So when you have a LaFleur leave and he becomes the coach in Green Bay, you bring up another guy, he becomes the coach in Minnesota, and then you've got another guy who's now the brother of LaFleur. He's the offense coordinator. He's the hot commodity who's probably going to get a head coaching job somewhere else in the near future. You've got Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator, who's probably going to end up getting a job, whether it's this year, next year. He's going to be a head coach. So systems are very important. The thing with the Giants and with Daboll is I don't feel like there's been a huge disconnect. And again, we can beat up on Daboll now that he's gone. But the one thing that seemed obvious, we talked about it last year, Mike Kafka was removed as the offensive, was the play caller from the offense. And teams were interested in interviewing him. And what did the Giants do? They blocked it. They weren't letting him go.
All right.
And I'm like, that's really spiteful when you took it's like taking Sean Payton's ability to call plays away and then go, you can't leave, you got to stay. Like, and yet he did, and then he got his play calling back because I think the Maras pushed it at when they had their last meeting saying, listen, if you're coming back, you're not the play caller next year. That did not work out. That was one of the things I think they agreed to do. The article that comes up a lot about what happened, Renan's article, don't forget that there's parts where Joe Shane was listening in on the headsets because of what they perceived as how Daboll treats other people.
Right.
Well, these guys are now there. So bringing it all back into where we started.
Yeah, we should wrap it up.
What do we expect to see for this for Sunday? What are you looking for, regardless of like a win or loss? But what are you looking for to say, okay, that's good, that's not good?
I don't know what to expect. Honestly, because I don't know what Kafka is, but I do look at the roster right now, and it's not good because of the injury situation. The starting quarterback is out. The defense has serious and significant injuries, and the wide receiving core is a joke. And so again, I keep bashing him, and I'm going to keep bashing him. Bowen can't coach. So you put all that together, and I don't see how Kafka overcomes that, but I don't know what to expect from Kafka. So I don't really know. I will be interested in watching a game because of Kafka and Jameis Winston. But beyond that, I'm not expecting much on Sunday. I hope I'm wrong, but I feel like we're in countdown mode again. The game preview ended with 7 games left. Last week it was 8 games left. I feel like we're in that awful countdown mode. The bye week may give them a chance to get healthy. And like you said, they may steal two games at the end of the year. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing with the Maras. So I don't know. But I don't answer your question. I have no idea what to expect on Sunday. I don't think they're going to win, and I just hope it's not a blowout.
A couple things to look for. One, there is a lot of talk about Green Bay's defensive coordinator and possible connections. Obviously, there are people building this guy up where you're getting news reports that other owners are saying this guy's going to be a great coach.
Right.
Look for him with the Giants. That's kind of interesting that's being pushed. You know that's coming from his agent, and that makes sense. If the Packers come in and their defense absolutely dominates the Giants' offense, which I could easily see happening.
That could happen. Jameis Winston and with those wide receivers, sure.
That's a ringing endorsement. The other thing to watch for this weekend, by the way, is watch for Miami. You want Washington to beat Miami. You want Miami to keep losing. Because, by the way, if this Green Bay defensive coordinator ends up being a head coach of the New York Giants, I really do want Mike McDaniel to be available as the offensive coordinator. Those two have a connection in the past. That would be a great combo. That said, a couple things.
Well, why do you want Miami to keep losing?
Because Mike McDaniel possibly would then be fired.
Well, isn't that kind of a foregone conclusion already, or no?
No, they won last week, and if there's some talk that the owner doesn't want to fire him.
Oh, okay.
So if they were to keep winning, I think.
So you want them to keep losing because you want the coach to become.
I would like if we're going to end up with the Green Bay defensive coordinator as a head coach, then and they have a connection. He and McDaniel have worked together before. There's people are putting the two together. I would love if Mike McDaniel was the offensive coordinator.
And that would be a good situation for the Giants in this sense that you would think that teams would be reluctant to hire the offensive coordinator away as a head coach again. People always said, well, you can't go with a defensive head coach because if you get a really good offensive coordinator, he'll get another job someplace
I don't
else.
believe in it. Yeah.
But if you get McDaniel, people might be like, I don't know about that. Kind of like with Spags. Spags probably should have gotten another offer by now, but people are like, well, look at what he did with the Rams. We're not going to touch him.
Yeah,
You know,
there's usually like a time frame,
yeah,
right? There's X number of years that have to go by before they will just. It's one thing if you leave an organization and then you get hired as a head coach again because you were a winning coach, a Mike McCarthy kind of deal where you've got
right.
a big time winning record. But when you have a losing record, you generally don't get hired as a head coach again somewhere else. Look at Belichick. He had a decent record with Cleveland, and it still was a number of years before he got another head coaching job. So look for a couple things. The other thing to look for is if the Giants bring up Dante Miller finally, if they bring up
They
Terminal
could.
Miller,
They
and
could.
they should because you only have two running backs, that might signal that they are going to try to lean a little more on the
Yes.
run and
Yes.
then play action and deep passes.
Yes.
If they go with two, they're going to still try to play more the up tempo, the sort of handoff throws, but they're not going to go a full on running game. So a three running back system tells me they're planning to run
Yeah.
more. They don't want to expose it. The other thing is just what do they do at? You've got tight ends, right? Johnson, we know what he is, and he's a borderline one depending on your team. And after that, Bellinger's a guy whose contract's going to be up. What are you going to do with him? Manhurts, you're not going to bring back next year.
No, I think that's it with
So do we
Manhurts.
start seeing Fedoni get some more playing time? What does he
Yeah.
have? You got to determine what you got for next year. You've got to use this time. If you're Shane, that's what this is about, is identifying your roster going forward if you're coming back.
Yeah. Fedoni's been hurt though. That's the other thing to keep in mind. I
True,
think
he
he's
has a foot.
probable, but he's been nicked up the last few weeks. So we'll see. We'll see. I think it's an important final stretch for Tyrone Tracy. He hasn't had the year
Yeah.
I hope for him. So, I mean, he had a decent second half of the game last week, but I want to see more from Tyrone. And again, it's going to be hard on him because the other teams are going to be like ganging up on the run at this point, like you and I just mentioned. But I would like to see Tyrone Tracy at least make some big plays in the last 7 games. That's the one guy on offense that I'd be looking at. But it's a severely limited offense right now with Dart out. Even if Dart wasn't hurt, the wide receiver situation makes the Giants just. I mean, I don't still think fans really realize how bad the wide receiver room is right now. I mean, I don't know if it's ever been worse.
Well, here's a way to look at it. If you really want to look at it this way, there will be guys that are going to play and are going to play a decent amount of snaps that probably would have only snuck in the fourth quarter of the last preseason game if they were on the roster in training camp.
Well, Dallin Combre had 5 catches in college, his whole career. Now maybe 7, but it was less than 10. His whole career in college, and he's going to probably be on the roster at some point this year. In his whole college career, he had like 5 catches. So, and he's going to be playing for the New York Giants on Sunday.
He makes David Tyree, look like he would have been like a third round wide receiver from LSU. That's the difference in production.
Yeah.
Not people. I know nothing about him beyond what we know and what we saw in training camp. But what I'm saying is, a production standpoint, I mean, David Tyree was a very minor wide receiver. He was known for special teams, and yet he had far more of a pedigree coming into the NFL than Dalen Combre does, and yet he's probably going to play in the game on Sunday.
But look at the problem with Shane has here is he's the one who brought back Slayton. He's the one who drafted Hyatt, and they kept Hyatt on the roster. And those guys have completely flamed out and have not lived up to expectations at all. And that has really hurt changed the entire complexion of this offense. 2 guys that were, and again, they were handed a golden opportunity with the injury to Malik Neighbors, and both have come up as woefully short as you could possibly imagine. I mean, the fact that I can't believe Hyatt has been this invisible given the situation at wide receiver. That's how bad he's been. So is that on Is that on Dable? I doubt it, but we'll find out. Like you said, the perfect storm for him is here. Winston is going to play quarterback. I had forgotten about the touchdown, like you said. It was that game that he dropped all those passes too.
Yeah,
Remember?
yeah.
And then he can't. But he went through them and he threw it. So on that note, we probably should wrap this
Well,
up.
it just so you can have something warm to hug yourself.
Yeah.
This is I know comments on a sweater. This is my second one from. It's called the Irish Store. It's actually in Ireland. Amazing stuff. Now, when you get it, when you open it up, it smells like they sheared the sheep right then and packed it in a thing when they send it over. But once you break it in, God, these are so.
You know, one of my favorite cheesy movies is what is it? Better Off Dead.
Better Off Dead.
You remember?
Of course.
It's awfully warm. Do you remember when he puts on the hard part? It looks
Better Off Dead is the one where they. Well, God,
that's
I hope
a damn shame.
Hopefully,
away a perfect
they throw a perfect good white boy.
One of my favorite cheesy movies.
That's where Booger from Revenge of the Nerds is constantly talking about, like, the mountain is like, he's like, look at this pile of shit. This is pure shit. Because you know how much the street value of this is? So here's something to hug yourself all nice and warm. Darius Slayton counts $16 million on the cap next year.
I mean, Christ.
Next year. $16 million next year.
And we don't have cap room. So on that note, I thought you said you were going to leave me with something positive. That's not
positive. I'll leave you with this. I play DraftKings stuff. I play in the Millionaire Maker tournament.
You're going to tell me you just won $1 million. Yay.
I wish, dude. I wish. There's a lot of things I wish that I wouldn't have to do a lot of other stuff that I have to do. No, but what I do. So if you're not familiar with how you play the what's daily fantasy football, but it's not you keep a roster for the entire year, all that good shit. You're doing just on each weekend. So they have what they call their Millionaire Maker. It's a $20 buy-in, and you can have a max of 150 entries. Obviously, I do not do that. I usually do anywhere from 1 to 3. So I'll spend $20 to $60. But I put in one lineup, and every time I always put one lineup where I pick a couple of Giants, just because if I'm ever going to win, I'm going to take my shot with my guys. So screw it. I put Jameis Winston in, and I put and I put Jalen. Well, there's a lot of things. The reason why you do that, even if they only get like a decent amount of points, you want things that are not what's called chalk. You don't want to pick what everybody else is picking. You got to differentiate yourself from other people.
You sound like you have a gambling problem, John.
Nah, because I literally just throw the one thing in there. If I did, I'd be spending $1,500 on a game alone. So I did put one lineup in with Winston, and I actually picked Hyatt because he's so cheap. It allowed me to get a couple of other players that are really expensive into the lineup because you have
So you're telling me if Jameis and Hyatt have a really good game,
if they light it up, I might we're
gonna see you on a beach with drinking margaritas.
It won't be this. It won't be this. It won't be this Voodoo Ranger Tropic Force. But that being said,
BBI baby on the beach, you'll be like the guy with the red stapler at the end of Office Space. You'll be like Milton.
Oh, Milton.
You'll be like Milton.
He's like, I'm going to burn the building down. We're going to have to get you to move to the back if that's okay. Yeah. You've been getting a paycheck, so you win. So we corrected the problem.
We corrected them. These things tend to work themselves out.
I didn't get paid. So anyway, that being said, we've hit the end of the line. Subscribe, all that good stuff. We had a great show with Cy. If you did not see it, please watch. We're going to have Cy on again down the road. I'm looking to do some stuff with Cy with the draft. That'd be great. And if there's players from the past that you'd like to see, be careful. Don't just say Eli. I understand that, but there's no chance in hell that I can get Eli. But if you want to, we can start thinking ahead to start doing some of that stuff. That'd be great. And make sure you get your TP.
You get Dave Meggett from prison.
But we can only have him on for 5 to 10. Okay, so with that being said, like, subscribe. We'll catch you again real soon.